Hi,
Hello.
Drew, Kelly, and
Oh, you can hear us?
yes, we can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Thank y'all for joining me. Appreciate it.
All right, you guys ready to start?
Yes.
We're ready.
We're good.
All right, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Hey, Julie, Kelly, and Drew, I'm going to mute you guys. Just ask questions through the chat function. Just so everybody knows, this is going to be a recorded call, and I'm going to be sending this out to everybody shortly after this is concluded. But I want to take a moment and first of all, I want to thank Peter and Michael Rittenhouse, some of our newest franchisees in the SpeedPro system. Peter and Michael, thank you again. If you don't mind, why don't you guys just introduce yourselves and maybe talk a little bit about what you were doing prior to SpeedPro? And Michael, why don't you go second? Peter, why don't you go first?
Very good. Good afternoon. My name is Peter Rittenhouse, and we started the SpeedPro franchise here in Allentown last year. I guess we signed the contract in January, and we started. We got our equipment in May, and we had some Buddy Studio sales prior to that. But prior to with SpeedPro, my entire career was in food production, manufacturing, with two companies. I worked for Frito-Lay and production of snack food, and then I moved on to Nestle, and it was my Nestle experience was all about bottled water manufacturing. You know, it was one of those things I got on the bottled water wave, pardon the pun, and kind of rode that until it kind of reached saturation. So I got to see that rise, and participated in a lot of production, a lot of factory building and things like that. So that's kind of in my DNA. And you know how that relates to SpeedPro is that you know, I like the fact that there's a light manufacturing aspect to this job. We're actually making something and selling it for a profit. I like that model.
Michael?
Awesome. My name is Mike Rittenhouse. Peter's my dad here. So before SpeedPro, I went to school at University of Pittsburgh for industrial engineering. And after that, I moved back to our hometown of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I worked for a lighting controls manufacturer as an engineer. And I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot. I worked there for 4 years. And it was, you know, my dad and I had, you know, wanted to explore a different opportunity. So I left my job there in March of this year, and, you know, have not looked back. I've been super happy, and we're continuing to grow here.
Thank you, guys. Hey,
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about Allentown, where it is? You know, maybe just give a general makeup of you know, your territory.
Yeah, Allentown's in eastern Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia, about an hour north, and it's really kind of three communities: Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. And I think when we did the research, there's about 800,000 people in the entire region, and it leaks a little bit into western New Jersey. It's also known as, you know, the Lehigh Valley. Lehigh University's here. That's the major university. Lafayette University's here. And it used to be where Bethlehem Steel, you know, there had a lot of heavy manufacturing in history. Bethlehem Steel went out of business in 1995. And kind of what took over from that is there's a lot of warehousing. Pennsylvania's got some business advantages over New Jersey. We're 90 miles from New York City. And the Nestle operation was based here. That's where I was in when I left Nestle, and it was a bottled water. It's a terrific distribution center, especially for food, to get to Philadelphia, New York, Boston, and Washington, D.C. So I think some of the statistics is we can hit like 30% of the 30% of the U.S. population is within a 3-mile drive of the Lehigh Valley. So it's
Wow.
there's a good density here of people in consumption.
All right. So thank you, Peter. Before we get into SpeedPro, what I really like about this opportunity for a lot of folks is what you went through over the last year is still fresh in your mind. I remember, Peter, you and I at this time last year, right? We're talking about executing an agreement, and we were at that point a year ago today. And I remember talking to you prior to Thanksgiving and all that, right? So, and I know someone on the call, Sean Brennan, he also was working with a TES coach, just like you did. Talk to us a little bit about what you were looking at also, along with SpeedPro, but what else were you looking at, and why you decided to move forward with SpeedPro?
Steve, remember one question. What kind of coach, could you clarify that?
Yeah. So TES, you were working with a coach.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah.
That's how you identified SpeedPro.
The entrepreneur
the entrepreneur source.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think what he did was very professional in terms of he kind of slowed me down and says, I got a process, and as we get down here, I'd like you to buy into my process because I've had success with this process. And there was a survey where my likes and dislikes, and then he had access to other franchises, and he basically said, I'd like your commitment that you'll listen to all three. I'm going to put 3 franchises in front of you, and I'd like you to listen to all 3. And I thought it was a great process because you got exposed to different senior leaders in the organization as they made their pitch for their franchise. And, clearly all of them were sales based. That was a huge component of it. And in my assessment of Michael's skills and where we wanted to go, I really thought Michael had the sales gene that I didn't have. And I thought that would be a great way to kind of get started because I had the production side, and then we have Michael on the sales side. But the business to business sales immediately got attracted because of business to business. The other 2 opportunities I had were for more of one was a retail operation selling food, which was interesting to me, but I didn't want to have to staff a food franchise with people. The other one was home care, painting interiors and exteriors homes, and I really didn't want to have that kind of crew as well. So what was important to us is I liked the light manufacturing part of it. I liked the fact that we could actually keep our headcount low and use technology and the internet to grow the business. And that, when I started comparing SpeedPro to other sign franchises, not the need not to have a storefront. And then in some cases, really, SpeedPro doesn't have a big storefront presence other than like some downtown locations, like I know Chicago does. But those were all things that were very attractive to me. And the other franchises, I thought they were interesting, and you could see the success in that. Is that I just felt like I'd rather be more in a light manufacturing, business to business, kind of weekday work as a work schedule, and not have to rely on weekend work for sure. That was important as well. So it's a bit of a lifestyle business as well.
Right.
That where I'm at in my career is like I don't really want to go and work weekends or anything like that.
Got it. And I want to talk about, so you executed your agreement in early 24. Talk to us about the process and finding a location, going to training, and then, doing production training and then opening up. So just walk us through that process. Again, it's fresh in your mind still. But either one of you can answer that.
So the process for me, well, I left my job in March of this year. My dad can speak a little bit more about the finding the location, and he did a lot of that groundwork. But my role really from March 15th, when I left my job, was to go out and get a feel for the market. And I started, I left my job on a Friday, and I started the very next Monday going to other places that before we even had before our equipment was in, and before we had our location, we were building that network, and I knew I could get the work done through Buddy Studios. So that gave me, the confidence to go out there and, start calling on some potential clients. So that was my experience, which I thought was awesome because I had wanted that. Like my dad said, sales was something that I wanted to be in, and it allowed me to do that. My very first week on the job.
And I want to go back to that, but I want to go back to that after Peter talked to us about finding a location. Did you have who were you working with in regards to a broker? I think you had someone locally that you knew. Just talk to us about that process, and then Michael, I want to go back to what you just said.
Yeah, I had a neighbor that I think if he would have found out I was working with somebody else other than him on commercial real estate, he would have been upset. So he worked with me, and we were able to find something that was important to me. I wanted to obviously get a good value and not overpay for real estate. And the market's open here, but it's not like it's not. I don't believe there were any kind of deals. I think we paid market price, but I'm within a mile of my home, which is nice. And I kind of worked on this side of town. I'm on the west side of Allentown, right on Route 100, which is there's the main highway 476. It goes between Philadelphia and Allentown, and there's a lot of commerce along that corridor, and it's kind of right on the west side of Allentown. So that's kind of the area where we live. So it was nice, or I don't have a huge commute. So that was actually relatively easy. And I felt like we got a good deal, not a great deal, but it's kind of market pricing. But it's a nice area where we're in kind of an industrial park, and there's a lot of commerce going on. In fact, the one thing that you realize is you get exposed to SpeedPro, you realize how many signs there are, and you start looking signs everywhere. And then we kind of underestimated, quite frankly, about how many sign manufacturers there are. But at the same time, in that process, I think Michael did a terrific job with his business assessment that there's only a few that are in every conversation. And when we talk to the offset printers and we talk to people that are the natural first customers, these three companies, these three other printers kind of came up. And obviously there's in the Lehigh Valley, there's two fast signs. So that was the first thing we heard about and thought about and everything like that. And they're not in our market. They're not the number one and two. The other two that show up are independent sign companies that do a great job.
That most likely have been there for a very long time.
Yeah,
right?
They've been there. On average, I would say the two top ones, Valleywhide's at least 10 years in the business, and I don't know the other one.
Yeah, I would say you could really just
Peter, talk to us about how big the location is. So it sounds like I'm pretty sure you found something in 3 months, right? You found a location within. Yeah, and so talk to us about
April. I think our first payment was for the month of April.
Okay.
And then the way it works, and I understand, is that you kind of have to have an agreement before they release the equipment. And I think we had April, and it allowed us to get some stuff organized here. And then the machine showed up in May, and we were producing in May and June, and we're off the races. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The other thing, Steve, I just want to mention about in that whole process, our Buddy Studio was identified as Harrisburg, and we actually met you and Dave Higgins, and I have a good relationship now with Dave Higgins, and it was kind of a good thing. They did our first 3 jobs. They produced our first 3 jobs for us. And then we also used North Philly for some of our production before our equipment came.
Great. And so you started out with the roll-to-roll, the plotter, the laminator, and within a year, you're already looking to add a UV printer, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to go back to Michael. So when you started prospecting, did you also join networking groups and start attending networking events, or what? talk to us your process before you started.
Yeah, so a lot of it was I talked to other owners. I talked to Dave Higgins, and I said, what would be the best use of my time starting off, and he identified a couple different ones. He started off with other sign and print shops that may or may not have, even if they have the same equipment, there's still plenty of opportunities.
Right.
They may not run certain. They may their printer might be not used as much. They might not have someone to run it. They might not be using the same materials we are. So there's really so much opportunity. So that's where I started, was mostly offset printers. And it takes a little bit of time to earn that trust. But once you do, they want to go to you. So that's where I started. The first couple of weeks was, traveling around and introducing myself to a lot of offset printers. And then from there, it was marketing companies, just talking to them about what we do and how we can, help them provide this service to their clients. And about networking, yes, I did. I'm joined a networking group. We're part of the Chamber of Commerce. So that's really takes up a good amount of my time during the week, is going to those events and figuring out which ones are the best use of my time. And I'm looking at joining actually another networking group as well. So that's where, finding those connections and wanting to help those people in the networking groups has been really beneficial to us.
Yeah, something that I'm stressing to folks even before they sign is, start going through, just doing a Google search, different networking groups that you can potentially join, even asking them, are there openings, or because a lot of times networking groups only want, one company like us in their group. And so doing that initial research, I think, is very important. All right. So let's talk about, you opened up. How have you felt? How are things going? You've been open for about 5-6 months now. So talk to us about that. Just talk to us about the progression that you've made since you officially opened.
I think they're going good. I mean, we don't argue that much.
Talk to, before you answer that. Okay.
Yeah.
So your location is it 3,000 square feet, or is it bigger?
No.
5,000.
5,000.
Okay. It's 5,000 square feet. And so do you have a production manager? Tell us the makeup. So I know obviously you two started, but did you hire somebody right away to do production?
No, I know that's the model, and the other part about this, I have 4 sons, and I always wanted to work with my boys in something, and I thought about having a factory and things like that. And my oldest son Ryan was the creative director for a sporting goods company, and I knew at some point, the goal was, hey, how do we get him in? And he's in Adobe all the time doing design work. He's got a few awards, and he was actually making a very nice salary. And the other thing is, he was actually living in Ireland at the time with his fiance, kind of to spend some time with her and her family, because they're going to be, once they're married, they're going to be living in the United States. So that was always in the back of my mind. So we kind of were, as Michael and I only. And I knew Ryan was out there, and Ryan actually started this month as our third person.
Oh,
so
excellent.
I with all my time in operations and in factories, headcount is something that gets a lot of scrutiny. So I'm not looking to have a lot of heads. And I think with this new purchase that we have pending on this thing, is that I think with technology, I think we can get things done without a lot of extra heads. So I'm going to be real head count conscious. And what I don't want to do is hire somebody and then not give them full work anyhow. But right now it's a family affair. And I think we're managing to get to our sales to a certain level. And then I think feel a lot more confident about making some investments. The nice thing is the production aspect of this job is not hard. And the trickiest stuff is the installation side, especially vehicles. And some of the some of the situations you can get with like working at heights is something that we're not completely comfortable with. But those are the stuff inside this building I'm completely comfortable with and feel like it's within that. And some of it is I never always worked in factories, but I never did anything other than, supervise. And
He still does a lot of that.
yeah, I'm pretty good at that. But I think the thing about it's kind of rewarding, kind of making something with your hands. So that aspect of it is, I got a lot of friends that are retired and they're like making bowls and with their lathes, and I think this is a little bit more interesting. Plus, I make money at it.
Sure. All right. So 6 months in, talk to us about getting customers. Okay. So I know, Michael, you talked about prospecting and you were able to generate some business that way. So how are you getting business? I mean, I assume online pay-per-click is working to a certain degree, but so talk to us just about getting customers. And I want to bring up, I'm going to share my screen and bring up a picture, but I don't want to talk about this project yet. But let's just talk to us about getting customers and how that happens, especially being brand new.
Yeah, so it really came back to the model that I kind of set up in my head, and of course things change as you go along, but I really wanted to start with the offset printers and marketing companies because I knew there was a need there. And that's where I started off, and we have 2 offset printers that are giving us work, and that was only that was after a few months of calling on them, I'll admit. And sometimes timing just isn't right, and you have to stay with it. You have to be persistent, but there is work out there. And so with marketing companies and offset printers, those were 2 easy ones to right away with the equipment and experience we had. We could deliver for them. Now I'm kind of changed, for 2025. Well, so to answer your question, Steve, for the first 6 months, I was doing a lot of that, and then on top of that, of marketing and offset printers. We have our pay-per-click campaign, and we had Google and Facebook ads, which I would say is at least a good amount of sales per month comes from that, and you never know whether that's going to lead. Sometimes those ones lead to more business from that same company. So that's been really helpful, having that going in the background just to keep our machines running. But really, what's next is going after in 2025, with our new machine that we're getting in. Construction and architecture is next on our list.
That's great.
So so that's what we want to go after.
How did you identify marketing firms and offset printers? Did you just Google it? Did you get a list? Well, talk to us about that process.
Yeah, I used Google and basically set up I dropped a bunch of pins on Google Maps. And there's a few different, started it, at our location. And I said, on Monday, I'm going to make a big loop and hit all of these ones. On Tuesday, I'm going to make a big loop and hit all of these ones. And I really just walked in and started talking with, I did a little research ahead of time, figured out who the owner was, walked in and just asked to speak to him for a little bit. And, everyone was, very open and kind to me. With the exception of a couple, I will say, just because you're walking in, but everyone was. You kind of have to be okay with that, and that's really what I did. And I did the same thing for marketing and advertising. I did also get a list that Josh had created for me that was helpful, but Google was basically my biggest tool at that time.
A question just came in, and I think it's an important one. Can you talk to us? What does it mean, offset print? And I want to elaborate after you answer, because I think if I think about our world, right, there's offset printers, there's grand format printers, and then there's large and wide format printers like us. But talk to us about what is an offset printer, Michael?
So an offset printer is they're not using the digital printing that we're used to. So from my understanding, most of them have a limit of up to 24 inches for like some of their larger. That's like the largest they can go. So a lot of them are doing forms, brochures, business cards. Some of them are doing binding as well. Like I know the one that I work with a lot does all of the calendars and forms for like our local baseball, our AAA baseball team. So really anything, I would say the max would be, 24 inches, and sometimes that's even at their limit.
Yeah, and what's interesting about offset printers is a large majority in Harrisburg, they were an offset printer and they ended up buying a SpeedPro. But the junk mail that you get on a daily basis, like those catalogs, a lot of times you just look at it and you throw it away. That's what an offset printer does. I mean, so the way I describe offset printing is it's high volume, very low margins. And grand format printing is, large projects, there's a lot of profitability, but it's very expensive to buy a grand format printer. And so that's why those two industries we work with a lot, because their focus is not large and wide format graphics. All right, I wanna just talk a little bit about. I got a couple questions that I want to ask. You already talked about competition. Now, there's competition, but what is the value proposition that you guys bring to your territory compared to the competition? And in fact, I know the two fast signs very well. And I never really understood, clearly what was the difference between SpeedPro and fast signs until I actually came on board with SpeedPro. But what is the value proposition that you guys provide versus the competition?
You want to answer?
One example that I have is that we did some work. We were talking to Kate. We did some work for the zoo, and I could tell they liked us because I think we were just motivated to kind of do whatever it took to get the job done, and I could tell that they were comfortable asking us questions. They had some quality concerns about the job, and we were Johnny on the spot, and made sure that we rectified them. And actually, one of them was that there was a bubble in some lamination that we knew was going to go away with the sunlight because of what we learned from Dave Higgins and Joe McGinnis. And he said that's just part of it. It looks at production, it looks like it's a defect, but quite frankly, once the sun hits it, it goes away. So I think the fact to take the time to explain it, we had the time to explain it, but we got several repeat jobs from them, and I think the value proposition is that we want to be successful, and it's a family-run business, and you can trust us. I think that's one example that came back because I could tell that we were giving him a level of service that he had not gotten before.
Yeah, and I stress to people, when you're starting out, you had the capacity to be quick. You had the capacity, again, to have that layer of support for your customers, because you're new, and hopefully in the next year at this time, you're going to be so busy that, you're not going to be able to turn things around, but you're going to learn your customers' buying cycle, right?
Right.
All right. Talk to us a little bit about the network of SpeedPro franchisees. I know Peter and Michael, I stressed that during the sales process. Dave Higgins has moved on, but he is a business consultant now. But talk to us about the network support that you get from franchisees throughout the system.
So that was huge for us starting off, Steve, because we had through our network of just somebody that my dad had used to work with, we got connected to a business that was going through a rebrand. So we completely rebranded their location outside of Philadelphia, and we did that using Joe McGinnis in his studio. So that was work that we were able to take on that before we had our equipment, and before we had our equipment and felt comfortable with it, we relied on him to help us get it done. And he was running a full operation himself, so we feel indebted to him because he helped us out so much in the beginning. And to him, it was just he was happy to do so. So that right there really made us feel really good about the SpeedPro network right off the start.
Yeah, and I feel like you have a layer of support obviously from the corporate office, but I do feel like the franchisees rely on one another a lot with questions. It could be about vendors. It could be a, how do I install this project? And I think that separates us from a lot of different franchises.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The ask the owners. There's so many that come through a day. I ask questions all the time on that. But it's also good to just see what other studios are doing and what questions they have and what projects they're working on. Like yesterday, I saw one and I said, "Oh wow, that's something that I could offer to my clients just from seeing what other studios are doing." And
Right.
the good part is I saw that idea and then I saw a whole plan on how to execute it from someone that's already done it before. So it's like ideas, and then it makes my life easy to some extent.
Yeah. Right.
The other question, and a little bit of a different direction, Steve. When I was
Sure.
working with the coach at the entrepreneurial source, obviously the question comes up about Chick-fil-A, and there are Chick-fil-A's in our area. And obviously you as a customer of Chick-fil-A, you're very impressed and think like that's a great franchise, and what would it take to be in a franchise? And you kind of get behind the curtain on Chick-fil-A. It's very standardized, very structured kind of franchise, and there's not a lot of room for autonomy. And from what I understand, the margins that you have to have several stores to really make good money. And where I am in my career, I like the autonomy to make my own decisions. And I think there's a good balance there. So, for example, Dave, when I was talking with him, his feedback was go straight to the FI. We talked about that, and it's like, and that I thought that was a very healthy conversation, because that was clearly my option because it was my money. At the time, I didn't feel like I wanted to be that aggressive. I felt I'd rather get started and get some sales and get inertia. And but there was I talked with you, I talked to Ryan Yates, I talked with a bunch of people about that, and really kind of felt like I made the best decision. And as I come back, because my initial thought was, what if we can't sell? And now with Michael's success, I feel like selling's not the issue. Now it's going to get in next year. It's like, who do we want to sell to, and what kind of businesses do we want to get into? And our kind of motto is we want to work with companies who want to build their brand, and we want to help them build their brands visually.
Right.
That's kind of where we'd like to be, because we know people that believe in brands are willing to invest in brands. And then I think that's where we can step in and saying, hey, we're gonna treat your brand, with kid gloves, and we're going to help enhance your brand and improve the value of your company. And that's where I think we're trying to focus on a proposition where we can actually add value to a company because the brand's that way. And I think this ATS job, which was our first major one, we had that approach with them, and we got there's total 4 locations, and we got all 4 locations to do the rebrand on, where we had to travel, and we were able to charge for that, and that felt good, because I thought we were actually taking their business to the next level with that respect. So I think it's not like when you join SpeedPro, you give up your autonomy. In fact, I've been exposed to other franchise owners where I like the autonomy, where other franchise owners, which kind of like, I wish we got more direction. We got more direction from headquarters, but it's not laissez-faire, but it's not controlling. And I'm very comfortable in that space, because we want to create our business the way we want to create it. There are some times where there are times when you're new, you're looking for direction, and some of the stuff you just kind of have to buckle down and figure out yourself, or trial by error, learn by doing is that's a big part of, that's the way I learn in the first place. I'd rather go do it and try it than necessarily read about it and then try it. I'd rather just jump right in, and I'm comfortable in that, and that's kind of the way it is. So I'm not trying to say you're not supported, but you are independent of that. There's support with the the operating system, something I had no interest in learning or creating on my own in Excel and coming up with an operating system. So Corebridge was kind of intimidating at first, and you're drinking through a fire hose in the beginning, but Corebridge is really sweet because we know where all our customers are, we know where our bills are, we know who owes us money, who doesn't, and that's a nice system. And I think the technical support obviously is something we rely on. And between the equipment manufacturer and Ryan Yates and his team, feel very well supported on the technical aspects of the job.
Got it. And before we get into this slideshow here, do you mind you can be vague. Do you mind just sharing some sales, how things are ramping up over the first 6 months?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what I'm asking is it met your expectations for the first 6 months? And, what's your thought for 2025?
Yeah, it's definitely met our expectations. We have goals of much higher, but in terms of our speed and what we've, how we started, we now have the new machine. We now have my brother, who we're super excited to have come join us full time in production. So our goals have changed, drastically from what we want to do next year versus where we are now. But right now we're happy with where we are. We're happy with the customers that call us each week. But we're at a point where we're really ready to take it to the next level.
Yeah. Got it. All right. Yeah. So talk to us about, so you started out, like we mentioned in the beginning, with the roll-to-roll printer, the HP latex, the Suma plotter, and the column-mistral laminator. And what was the decision to, and the picture that we're all looking at right now, this is what they're buying, which is an EFI hybrid flatbed UV printer. Talk to us about why you decided to do that.
This is the manufacturer that Dave has in Harrisburg. He has a 16. This is a 30. It's basically the web width of the product is 1.6 meters or 3 meters, typically, which is like 5 feet or 10 feet. So this is as a 10-foot bed. And one of the distributors hosted a trip to New Hampshire where EFI is located, and they called me up and said, "Are you in?" And the whole trip was gratis. I mean, they paid for my flight and they paid for the room and board, and it's like, well, I can't pass it up. I wasn't really in the market, but I kind of wanted to understand it. And they were boasting of some upgrades they made to the 16, the 1.6 meter one, the 16, and they're actually going to make that more like the 30. So I kind of made a decision. I think I need to make an investment. I have financially, it's to my advantage to do something now than to wait next year with my tax situation, and my accountants helped me out with that. So I felt very comfortable about making an investment. It just so happens that after we went back, the franchise owner, it was a SpeedPro exclusive day. So there were other SpeedPro owners from throughout the country, and it was nice to meet them. And they were all looking at the 16. A couple were looking at the 30. And Eric Lazar, the guy who owns Chicago and does very well downtown Chicago, sent an email like a week after the trip and goes, "Hey, there's a 30 available in North Philadelphia that's 2 years old." And this is the machine in the picture. And the owner of this machine is going to buy another EFI that has a feature of liquid lamination, that this does not have liquid lamination. So if you want to laminate something after this, if we're going to laminate anything, we're going to have to do that manually. The new machine, the M3 that he's buying, which is significantly more expensive, has that feature. So he was picked to kind of do a beta trial on this machine because it's brand new. It hasn't been introduced to the industry yet, the M3. So this was up on the market. So we went down there. It's 2 years old. Is not a SpeedPro owner, but a instantaneously likable guy. And we cut a deal. I couldn't afford a brand new 30. This is much bigger than what I expected because I was going to buy a 16. But when you look at this, it's really twice the capacity. and it's
Right.
faster. And I felt like it was a very good decision. And Eric is the one that kind of sent the email out and said, hey, this is available, look into it. And I think me and Kyle Mays in Chattanooga were the two that kind of looked at it. And I think the fact that Kyle backed out, I don't know Kyle's situation, but he was looking at it as well. But I feel like we got a very good deal on it. And, you know, the pressure of it all is like, you know, when we talked earlier about the thing, we are working to be, you know, cash flow positive. You know, I have not made my initial investment back this year. We are, since June, you know, we are actually cash flow positive in terms of I'm covering our cost, but not reaping the benefits of the profitability. And so I'm already going to, what I'm trying to say, I'm going to take a loss this year. A bigger loss here is I'd rather take it this year than next year as from a financial situation. So that's why I want to make the investment this year. And it all kind of just fell into place. And, you know, but for Dave Higgins convincing me to go up to EFI and then this opportunity, I probably would be, I know we're going to grow sales faster with this machine because of what it can do.
Got it. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some projects here. All right. And Michael, if you want to answer, or it's up to you, but you know, I always think wall murals are very interesting because I assume this is inside a building. There's not a lot of graphics on the outside of a building like this, but on the inside, there's so many things that you can do. Talk to us about how you got this job, and then I assume your roll-to-roll printer produced this, and then you installed it.
Yes. So this one's actually in our studio, Steve.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, this one's in our studio. So that was, you know, our first or second time installing something like this, and you know, we did that ourselves. That's when Ryan Yates came out and showed us how to install it.
Got it.
And so that was done by us. And it gave us confidence to go out and do some of the other jobs that you'll see here where, you know, we were installing for customers.
Yeah. The other thing, how that worked is that the first week I got our printer, HP showed up and they started it up. The second week, Ryan came out for the whole week. And a part of it was is to give him, you know, how Corebridge works and the workflow. And then he helped us decorate the studio because obviously this is when you walk in the lobby of our business. And those are two offices, but that's what people see when they walk in. So
yeah, it's beautiful.
You know, our point is when we invite people to come in, this is what they see. But generally, we don't have people walking off the street because we're in an industrial park. But they'll come in to pick up projects, or we'll invite them in to show them samples of what we can do for them. When we had our open house, you know, a lot of people enjoyed seeing that. That was ready for the open house. And I think with this new printer, we're going to ask all of our offset customers. We've got 3 really good offset printers that we've done business with to come in and really give them a presentation on what we can do now with this printer that we couldn't do before. And it's mainly, you know, print right on substrate. And the colors from this machine really pop. So, you know, when they come in, I feel really comfortable when they come into a nice lobby and it's professional looking. And I think people get a sense when we say we're going to do something. Hopefully what I want to communicate is when we say we're going to do something, they're confident that we're going to follow through with perfect execution.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, you know, when you work with offset printers, ad agencies, marketing firms, those are basically salespeople that you're not paying a salary to, and you know they're helping you generate sales. You know, it's
yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
All right. I know you mentioned ATS before, but how did you get this project? I mean, this isn't a traditional large and wide format graphics job, or is it? I mean, talk to us a little bit about how you got it and the process of production and installation.
It was right place, right time. Our first customer, we got our first sale, and he's a packaging company. And it just so happened I had worked with his father, and he's got his kind of, James is probably 30, and he runs a packaging company, and we made a doc sign for him. And we got talking, and he had a friend who is in charge of ATSs. They have 4 factories. He's in charge of all 4. And it just so happened that he was going through a rebrand. They changed from just Scientific Products, that was the name before, to ATS Scientific Products. There was a merger, and it just had, we had a couple meetings down there, and this was the first big sign we did that was produced in Warminster at Joe McGinnis' studio, and he was pretty happy with it. And then after this, he talked to us about, we need to do this for all 4 of our factories. And there was a lot of other signs. There was directional signs and 2-post signs that helped truck traffic get around the factories and things like that. And I had spent a lot of time in factories, and I think that I was able to anticipate some of the things that would help the factory just on organization and things like that. And it was a very good job for us, and it was kind of right out of the bat. I think we completed this job in June, all 4 of the factories. So it was like trial by fire. And there were times when we were completely over our head and knew it, but we didn't let them see us sweat out loud.
Yeah, that's great, because it looks like, so this was your foot in the door, and then you got into wayfinding signage because you were able to do consultative selling on top of producing this sign for them.
Yeah, and with this one that you see in the picture, so they that was a really big priority, was that specific one, because their CEO was coming to the location, and
oh, wow.
Of course it was last minute to get everything done. So we delivered on that, met their timeline, and after that, they trusted us that we would do the rest of the Philly office, and then once they trusted us with that, it was okay, go do the other locations. So it's, and we sat down with them and we said, what other, issues are you having around the office? What, not even really related to signage, so to speak, but like what's going on with your business? And then it opened up the questions of, our dock, it's not clear where, receiving and shipping is. It's not clear where visitors should park. It's not, so those little things, just, adding that extra, those questions and wanting to help them, with the signage, I think it gave them some relief that we were going to do a good job.
Yeah. The like, for example, Steve, on that, their visitor parking, they just had parking signs they got off of McMaster car that said visitor parking, and we were able to do in reflective letters so they're visible at night, vinyl. They put the ATS logo on there, and then we had that they have this. We put a blue border on it. It looks a lot better. And they especially the marketing person was very happy with the fact that we pretty much put that ATS logo on all the work we did that they didn't even have before.
And Peter, I mean, let's go back a little bit, because you guys didn't have a lot of experience in this industry. How did you figure out how to do that? Was it you bounced it off of a studio? Was it Dave? Was it Joel? I mean, how did you go from, hey, I've got this request, to you just produced it?
Well, I think on the thing, I had worked with Nestle, and I understood brands, and I think I felt comfortable sharing about that. Say, here's a way to get your brand out there, because that's what, this is a rebranding project, and let's make some of the stuff pop. And in the past, they weren't that interested in it, and it was upselling. But I think once we got the marketing manager in the room and in the conversation, and she was mainly interested to make sure that these blues match. And Joe helped us out a lot with that, and that was I was anxious about that because they didn't understand it, but Joe was very helpful. So I think between, I give a lot of credit to Joe, because he held his hands with us about getting the colors right and figuring stuff out. And there's a different way you want to print backlit signing versus signs that aren't backlit. In terms of, he explained that if when it comes night and you don't have the ink on right, it's going to look washed out. So you go a little darker. You go a little darker on those, because so you don't want it washed out when it's lit up. But I think fake it till you make it a little bit too. And then, of course, there's mistakes that you just have to take care of. And I think, we were so new. We did not make the margins I know we could have made on this job. I think we were so excited to get it. We kind of went a little low. In hindsight, I was conscious of it at the time. I'm more conscious of it now. But the experience we gained from that, I think, was like an investment in our future. And I know when we get other signs, we've done several now, and we know exactly where we want to be with margins. And if it wasn't for Corbridge, I wouldn't feel so confident that our margin trajectory, every month our margin's going up. And I think it's going to get there until we want to target that 80% gross margin is what we're shooting for. Wow. And I think that's competitive with the best studios. And really, we're benchmarking off the best studios in SpeedPro, and that's where we want to be.
Got it. All right, I want to ask a question into this, but so for the most part, are your customers providing you with the artwork, the graphics? Are you doing any graphic designing? Because when I look at this picture here, or this project that you completed, was this provided by the zoo? Was this, or did you guys, talk to us about that? Because again, I think a lot of folks coming into this, right? They don't have a graphic design background. Your son does, but how did this project come about, and how did you obtain the graphics? And talk to us about that.
Yeah, so for this one, I guess our work with the zoo just started by me calling up their marketing manager one day and just asking, hey, can I come by and talk to you a little bit about what we do? And from there, he was impressed with how we our approach to everything, and how we could we wanted to be professional to him. And I think that's where he gave us a few small jobs to start. And then we eventually worked up to this wall mural here. That's, if you, to the left of this there's actually, live giraffes that they're staring at you while we were installing it.
Really?
Yeah. They got a little skittish at one point, and they had to bring them outside. Yeah. So to answer your question, I would say it's probably 50-50, Steve, when we get print ready artwork versus when we have to, either create something from scratch or modify it. It really depends on who your customer is. For from the offset printers and the marketing, that's most of that stuff's going to come ready. But what I will say for this one in particular, we're the experts when it comes to actually making it happen. So, there's on the, you can't really see it in this picture, but on the bottom there was like a little bit of leader. There was like that wood trim of the barn was at the bottom. And 1 foot actually wasn't 1 foot because their graphic designer didn't take that into account. And that's when we told him, like, hey, we would recommend you, or we can do it. We'd recommend changing this artwork a little bit. So, when people go up to it, it actually is 1 foot. And he was really happy about that because he wouldn't, have wanted it to be installed with it being incorrect. So things like that is where you can add value. And, if they were to just order this online or, maybe have someone else do it, they wouldn't have got that same service.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think, Steve, I think on that, my percentage would probably be a little bit higher in terms of the artwork that you get from that is, while they think it's right, it's not right. There's this whole difference between vector files and raster files. And it's amazing. If you really want good resolution, you got to have to vectorize everything. And I knew pretty on that, that's what my son Ryan does. And he understands that like the back of his hand. And I think that was kind of like saying, we really need to get Ryan involved in the business because we're not going to get around trying to educate the customer. They just want what they want. And the last thing they want to do is get in a conversation around something like raster and vectorizing. So they kind of depend on that for us. But I would say like probably only 30% of the stuff we get is print ready. And we're having to make some kind of adjustment to that. Depending on the customer, like our offset printers, they should know better, and we'll charge them if we vectorize a file. A new customer, because we have Brian now, it's something he can do, and take Michael and I an hour to do. He can do it in 5 minutes. So
are you billing? Are you billing when you have to create something from scratch?
It's customer dependent, and I think our businesses, like this zoo is a nonprofit, so they're very sensitive pricing, and we want to be a good in standing with them. So we would not charge them because of them being a nonprofit, but the offset printers would actually charge them $50 to $75 to vectorize a file. And that's something we can do. And there's even services that you can spend to do that. That part of it is, especially when you're dealing directly with the consumer, and like, we're not turning anybody business away right now. Long term, we probably will do less and less with direct to consumer, and still really try to stay business to business. But that part of it is just working with the customer. But they understand when they're being treated well, and a $50 charge on a $200 job, most people are going to say, yeah, okay, I didn't, that has to happen. If you want the kind of clarity, we put banners together where we had raster in there, and they said it's fine. We don't like the quality of that, and we'd rather be not in that spot.
Okay. I've got two more questions. One came from a candidate. How many of your jobs, let's just go by a percentage, that you have to be on site to drop off or install versus them coming and just picking it up?
I would say probably 60 or 70%. Or
we drop off.
Yeah, we drop off. I mean, right now it's, getting started up. I drop off everything, that I have time for. And, I kind of treat it as a sales call. And
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what, other SpeedPro owners told me to do. So like, I'll drop something off and, take it as an opportunity to ask them, hey, what's new with business? Anything changed? It opens a lot of doors. Same goes for installation. Even if we're outsourcing the install, it makes sense for us to at least be there and kind of get the job started and talk to the customer there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great way to build a relationship. Go ahead, Michael or Peter.
Steve, just on the interactions, we started up, and we had immediate interactions with North Philly and Harrisburg. In September, there was a convention, and I got to meet other owners. This was a topic at the convention, and there's depending on the owner, there's two different philosophies, and which philosophy you're going to line up to. But the owners that I kind of connected with was, this is a kind of reconfirming the sale. They bought it, it's installed, and you're there to reconfirm that this was a good value and what a good deal they got. And that's a deposit in that relationship for a future sale. And I lined up on that. There are other owners that saying, I bend all that out, and I have third parties do that. And I think that's just too much of an arm's length distance from that. We have the time to do it, and I'd rather do it myself and know what it's like. So when I hire someone to do it, I have some kind of sense of what I'm talking about when there's a problem and how we get out of it. I'm not concerned about, solve any problem we get into. I'm not concerned about, we have the resources to make sure we do it right and fix it. So that's not a concern, but I'd rather have that kind of sale after the sale and saying, and confirm with confirm with the customer that they got a damn good deal.
Got it. Thank you. All right. I want to just end this call asking you both any words of wisdom that you would provide, that you can provide candidates that are on this call right now, or future candidates that are going to watch this at some point while they're going through the validation process. And maybe Peter, I'll ask you that question first.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like, I'll go back to Eric Lazar. And, I would say spend time thinking about whether you're going to be aggressive in the business or whether you're going to be conservative, because I think it'll help with investments that you make. Eric makes it real clear that he's aggressive and build it and they'll come. And that was not my original, when I was going through discovery, I was a little bit more conservative in my, my approach, build it slow and we'll see how sales go. And I think, I think it's a little bit of both, but clearly with this latest move with the 30, we're going to have a little bit more pressure that we have because, we're going to have some incremental sales to pay for this thing. And, but I actually feel like we're now set up with the right resources internally to make it work. And I think I got the right team here to get to next level. And I know there'll be future investments and growth, but you got to make the decision on how I would spend time how aggressive do you want to be and how conservative you want to be and find that balance that fits your personality and your willingness to invest in the business.
Thanks, Peter. Michael, do you want to add anything?
I would just say from my experience, I didn't come from a sales background. I knew it was something that I was a project manager before this, but I knew sales was something I wanted to do. And, when me and my dad started on this, I would just say, keep at it and don't get discouraged. That would happen a little bit in the beginning with me. But, you get up every day and you set a plan for yourself. And, it's really eye-opening how much opportunity there really is out there. And that's what keeps me going is that there's really, when you think about all the work, there's so much that we can do, especially with the new machinery, and, building my network. It's really, we're starting to see it snowball, which is awesome. And it was tough to visualize that at first.
Sure.
So you kind of have to be okay with some of the unknowns. And that's what we did.
I love the fact that you didn't rely on online pay-per-click solely just on, you went and you got aggressive and you went and got business. And now you are reaping the benefits from what you did previously to now you've got online pay-per-click working and now you're going to get referrals. So great job, guys. I appreciate it. I'm 2 minutes over the hour time limit. I appreciate it. Candidates that are on this call and future candidates that are eventually going to watch this, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Kate will be in touch shortly after this call, guys, to show our gratitude. So thank you very much. And you guys have a great Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you.
All right. Thank you. You too. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.